alumni and students, Calvin alumni and students, many of you are watching this because you are in the marketing field or you are in a role that pertains to the marketing field. So communications, design, fundraising, business, so many things are connected to this here, this conversation. So we're gonna have just a little bit of fun with the rivalry between Hope and Calvin. And we've got two wonderful guests, one representing each of the aforementioned colleges and or universities, depending on who we're talking to. Why don't you guys start just by introducing yourselves to the viewers, if you will, as Nathan falls off and runs to get, I think, a COVID test at Calvin. Connor, you go first.
Oh, I'll go. Okay, sure.
I'll make it easier.
My name is Connor Dault. I'm Hope alumni, class of 2014. I've been working in the marketing field for about 6 years now. I currently work for Quibi, which is a short form streaming entertainment company based out of Hollywood, trying to crack open the streaming space and play with the big dogs. So I'm on the growth marketing team there, and my responsibilities range from ad buying, creative development to retention through email and push notifications.
From a company that many have heard of, like a pretty big deal company. So Connor, thank you for joining us. Andrew, didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay. All right. So my name is Andrew Cooper. I'm Calvin, class of 2012. And my background is in digital marketing at agencies for the past 8 years. Most recently, associate director of digital marketing at Metric Theory. And now I've moved in-house to a company that is bringing sustainability as a service to businesses and helping them offset their emissions to make the world a better place. And I think that's it for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Making the world a better place, fulfilling your true college calling, per se, even?
Yeah, I guess so.
You're so much more worldly than me, Andrew.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not too many emissions coming out of Quibi, though, so at least we have that going for us.
Yeah, right. It's all digital. That's good.
We are going to have a Smackdown, gentlemen. Now that the kindness and the pleasantries are over, let's get out the cans of whoop ASS. I think we are going to go through 3 questions today. We'll start with one college and go to the other college or university. Calvin really made this a lot harder, by the way, with that name change. But
offering that master's.
So, and I will remain unbiased, of course, but why don't we start with you, Connor? And question number 1 for you to answer in, let's say, 2 minutes or less. Describe in detail how you would go about building a marketing strategy at a new job with a new organization. P.S. Feel free to use the job that you're at now, if you can remember all the way back to when you started, or pick something else. You've got 2 minutes on the clock.
Okay, so I'll start with something that hopefully resonates with Andrew as somebody that comes from the agency world. But one of the biggest problems with agencies, in my opinion, and struggles for agencies is that you're lacking business context in a lot of regards. So you're missing out on the entire scope of what's happening at a company, and you're kind of tied to marketing objectives. Hopefully those ladder up to business objectives. But I think the most important thing when developing a marketing strategy is to just understand the business in its entirety and understand exactly what that business is pointed towards and what exactly the objectives and KPIs of the business are. And then marketing obviously plays a role in helping the business accomplish those objectives. So when I joined Quibi, for example, the first thing that I had to do was sit with the cross-functional group, and we had to identify what our market looked like, what our competitive set looked like, what the largest headwinds that we were facing looked like, and then identify, all right, well then what are our goals that we need to achieve in order to actually be a sustainable and successful business in this highly competitive industry. So that was like square one. What do we need to get? How many subscribers do we need to hit a large enough revenue run rate for us to continue to fund content in a very expensive and very competitive world? So after that, that's when like the marketing strategy came into place. We basically said like, well, all right, if we need X million of subscribers in our first year, we can reasonably assume that we need X% of the American addressable market to be made aware of Quibi. And from there, we could basically like take a look at our competitive set, look at our past experiences, reference other markets if we needed to, and project out what like average benchmarks for performance would be from that like top of funnel awareness all the way down through conversion and becoming a net subscriber. Because at the end of the day, we want people that are paying Quibi and staying in the business. So again, this context setting was super important for us. After we knew that, for example, let's say like 3/4 of America needed to be aware of Quibi for us to hit our subscriber goal. That's how we basically started to set up, well, here's how much money we should be spending to address that top of funnel goal. Here's how much money we should be spending to address that bottom of funnel goal. And then after that, you go about your channel selection, you start developing your content and creative strategy, and you kind of just set up all of the KPIs that ladder back to those goals, again, so that everything can kind of play and coordinate so that you can achieve the overall business objective, marketing just being one piece of how you get there. Probably good.
Love it. Love it. Excellent answer from Connor. I will remain non-biased. I will use the word excellent with you as well, Andrew.
Great.
Andrew, I will re-ask the question just because I think that's only fair here. Describe in detail how you would go about building a marketing strategy at a new job with a new organization. Feel free to use your current job if you can remember back to when you started. 2 minutes on the clock. Your response.
All right, here's my excellent response. I agree that goal setting is like step one. Too many times in the agency world, you assume a goal or you think you know what the business really wants, and then everything that you set up to accomplish that goal is now misaligned because it wasn't actually the goal. So for me, I came into Greenprint and I sat down with my manager and I said, what are our goals for the business this year? And then how do you see that translating into marketing? And then I gave my 2 cents. In our situation, we have 2 different goals. We need to sign up more businesses. We need to help our sales team identify businesses that might want to work with us and be able to grow the total sales B2B wise. The second part was we need to be able to, for our partners, go out and tell consumers about the program that we set up with them and get them to actually go to our partner's store instead of a competitor because of our program. So from those 2 goals, basically I asked some peers what their thoughts were on what are we doing best now, what are we not doing well, and that gave me some ideas on where to dig in and find opportunities and to confirm or maybe go against what they thought was working or not working down the line. So from there, I really did jump into analyzing the data for myself with that goal, that business goal as my kind of like North Star of is what we're doing in this channel or this campaign effectively helping us reach that goal. And then I get into channel mix. I see, okay, my manager said that we need to be driving awareness of this program for our partners. Do we have YouTube? Do we have Facebook? What are we doing that are the typical awareness channels? Check those off the box. If there's one missing, note it down and ask why. And then within the channels, start again checking boxes of, do we have the best practice campaign types for all the platforms that we're involved in? Is remarketing in use? Are we bidding on our brand name? Like, what are the usual things that can go wrong inside of a channel that should be checked? And additionally, keeping in mind, I think we'll talk about this later, but keeping in mind that not every channel does the same thing, right? Like YouTube's going to get a lot of awareness, but I'm not sure it's going to drive leads for me on the B2B side. So keeping that in mind. Last piece would be if we have an agency, a lot of companies have both a marketing internal team and an agency, ask them for some of their input on what are we doing well? What have you done recently that you liked? And then try to have a really honest conversation about what they think we should be doing that people on our side have been resistant to in the past. You know, what's something that you've recommended that we didn't go with, but you still feel really strongly about, because you can find some great ideas there. And then finally, just bring all of that to my superiors and my peers, whoever I need to make decisions with, and tell them what I found, why I think it's important and what I think we should do about it before I go and actually do anything.
Love the response. I'm going to use the same word to be fair. That was an excellent response, I would have to say. So you referenced multi-channel, and I'm so glad that you did. The next question, we're going to do a little bit differently. I want to ask what channel you think is being most cutting edge. So is it, for example, Facebook? Is it LinkedIn? What channel, and you can define the word channel how you choose to define the word channel, is most cutting edge? Make your argument as to why. And then what we're going to do after this is we're going to then refute the other person's or the other school university's argument. So make sure you really believe in it. I'm going to give you just a couple seconds to consider what you think might be the most cutting edge and how you're going to answer this question. All right, let's start again on Hope's side. Now, the audience may argue later that there is not a coin flip and that therefore the referee is being unfair. But just for simplicity, let's start again on the Hope side. What is the most cutting edge channel?
I mean, I'd imagine that Andrew and I likely have a similar answer here, coming from the digital space, but I'm curious, Andrew, if you're experiencing something else. But for me, it's Facebook. It's a boring answer. It's the obvious answer. But the reasons why are just abundant. So for a company like Quibi, and like Andrew's, your use case is so different being at a B2B company. Us, we're a D2C. Our audience is anybody that has a credit card and a smartphone. So what we needed first and foremost was massive reach. I also have a philosophy that's mirrored by my colleagues at Quibi, that it's way better to do a few things world-class than do a bunch of things quite well. And so we focus on concentration and really trying to maximize like output from a core set of platforms. And we basically only buy from 6 platforms. So I'll just say that we buy Facebook, we buy Google, we buy Snap, we buy Twitter, we buy TikTok, and we buy Apple Search. And that's the majority of our growth efforts. But Facebook is the king. Facebook has massive reach, as all of us know. They have a single ads platform that could access Instagram and Facebook inventory, which is some of the most valuable in the world. Facebook's algorithms are trained with millions of advertisers and billions of dollars. And basically, if you tell Facebook to go get purchases, if you tell them to get app installs, if you tell them to go get leads for you, Facebook will do that for as much as you can fund it. But the real reason that Facebook is the most cutting edge is that Facebook a couple of years ago identified that for most advertisers, we've been chasing, it's called correlative metrics. So it's basically like chasing like last touch attribution, lowest cost per acquisition, and saying like, oh, all we have to do is drill that number lower and lower and lower, and then we're going to be able to get more and more money. Well, a couple of advertisers started getting really smart and understanding that for them, a lot of times what your business is doing is actually just driving a bunch of natural demand. And there's say 1 million people coming in your door every single day. And what platforms oftentimes do is stick ads in front of 500,000 of those people that are already planning to come and become a customer of your business. And what that does is it inflates those metrics and makes Facebook, whatever platform, look like a far larger contributor to overall growth of your business than they're actually causing. So Facebook got ahead of this practice that's called incrementality testing. So for us, or for me at Quibi, like we require incrementality testing in all of our partners, and that's why we've selected the ones that we do. So Facebook designed their entire platform, their entire suite of measurement tools to be able to measure on this concept of incrementality. Incrementality is basically there to answer the question, like, what would have happened in the absence of that ad? Would a consumer have actually converted and taken action if that ad didn't exist? If yes, then that ad didn't really matter, didn't really do anything. If no, then that ad actually like causally influenced a person to come in and interact or become a customer of your business. Like that tells you that Facebook ad really did its job and actually like influenced somebody to take an action. So Facebook's designing their entire suite of tools to focus on this concept. And they basically know that a lot of like the largest advertisers in the world, I'm talking Netflix, Airbnb, Booking.com, all of these guys are basically like holding all of their marketing dollars to metrics and KPIs such as this. And so Facebook is basically trying to make a self-serve platform in Ads Manager to allow you to answer these questions by yourself. So for that reason, I think Facebook is the king.
Wow. Okay. So that's Hope College making the bold claim that Facebook is still king. Calvin, how would you like to respond?
Well, I don't want this to be boring and just say Facebook as well. So can I like go back and kind of argue against some of that and then argue for a different sort of answer? Yeah.
Please.
I think that's the way to do it. Like
I could totally switch and propose an alternate if Facebook's boring. I have a second answer in TikTok, but we can talk about it.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll start by saying like I agree. I think Facebook is the cutting edge still. And I thought about saying Amazon here, but I think the truth is Amazon's newer in the ad space, but what they're doing isn't quite cutting edge. It's still like search engine and it's still programmatic display, and those things have existed. Now they're adding in their data layers, which are amazing because they know so much about their consumers. But at the end of the day, it's still search and display. And so let's go back. I'm going to say Facebook, but not for the same reason. I think that kind of incrementality testing is amazing. It's super important for the businesses that can gather enough data to do it. And that's my only problem with it, is that like at Quibi, I totally see that you've got a lot of ad spend, enough data to be able to confidently say that you actually know what's happening in the test group and the control group. But for the wide majority of businesses, they're not spending enough on ads or on Facebook to get enough data to know if that incrementality test was fruitful or not. So I've worked with dozens of advertisers that go for a test, and then the results come back and we're like, we don't really know. It's like, is that incremental or not? So that'd be my argument against that. My argument for Facebook would be that they just constantly churn out new ways to use the platform, new technology. Like I'm now using Facebook Analytics over Google Analytics to look at our path to conversion in some events, in some cases, and to understand like how somebody finds out about us all the way to a purchase. Because Google Analytics, like you said, is like in the old days of a last click attribution. So I don't believe in last click attribution. I don't think the last ad you clicked is the only ad that drove that sale. So Facebook is bringing that to the forefront, and like they have video, they have new ad types all the time, new ways to use the platform, and I feel like you could just constantly be testing in their platform, finding new ways to do great things, and on a cheap budget. Like a lot of the small medium businesses can go out there and create a video ad that looks decent in the Facebook platform without their own designer sometimes. So that's my reasoning for Facebook.
Woo! Woo! Connor, Andrew, I want to point out how in line you are with each other. And isn't it a little bit refreshing after recent debates that were publicly televised to see two people behaving like gentlemen?
Facebook is tremendous. I do want to say, I want to propose an alt.
Okay, do it.
I'm curious your thoughts, Andrew. So I think Google could be, but Google hasn't figured out a way to unify their ecosystem yet. Like search, YouTube, their DSPs, like they don't know how to talk to each other appropriately yet. And the disadvantage Google has is everybody that uses Google isn't necessarily logged in everywhere, versus like if you are on Facebook, you have to be logged in. So Facebook can unify, Google cannot yet. Once Google figures out how to unify and you can just like single source, go by search, go by all their DSP inventory, go by all their YouTube stuff, go by all their app products, I think Google will crush. Number three, my other proposal is for TikTok. TikTok has over 100 million users now. Like the beauty of TikTok is that you don't need to have, like to Andrew's point, like you don't need a designer. You don't need to go hire out some crazy video production company. You can just like film yourself, add a couple of interactive elements to it, some text bubbles on it, and it could be your top performing ad. Like it's just insanity. That platform and the potential for virality is nuts. Like if any portion of a business is like age 30 or younger, I'd probably recommend TikTok at this point over like a Snapchat or a Twitter. That's what we're seeing internally at Quibi at least. So I think in the next couple of years, TikTok, pending like if it's allowed to exist in the US, I think it'll be on most people's media plans alongside an Amazon, for example. So that was a good alternate as well.
It's too bad Google Plus didn't pan out, because that could be the data connector. If somebody's logged into Google Plus and they're on, they can basically tie all that data together from Gmail, from every different Google platform. So I agree. That's a miss. That's a part that they're missing that would be really impactful.
Very true.
Yeah. And the TikTok question is, of course, looming, but I think it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Andrew, are you in agreement that TikTok would be a good alternative, or do you see a better alternative out there?
I think everything Connor said is true. But for me, like a reason I'm not really focused on TikTok is that age currently.
Totally. It's very situational.
So yeah, it depends. But if I 100% agree, if you're in that age range, that's your market, it's amazing. Go for it.
Yeah. I'm curious, Andrew, like what's your perspective on like the legacy offline channels? Like what do you believe the value of TV, out of home, radio, all that stuff?
It's so much harder to quantify, you know. That's the biggest struggle that everyone I've ever worked with has had is, well, we have a sense of what Facebook is doing for us, or YouTube, or any digital platform, and it's just almost impossible unless you have enough data again and spend enough on TV. You're not going to understand your impact very well. So until you've really exhausted digital channels, it's a hard play to make. That being said, we're about to enter a possible partnership with a TV and a TV data company, along with a digital data company, to try and tie it all together and run some TV and see if we can really understand the impact. What do you think?
I don't think that TV, radio, out of home, and legacy media channels belong in any organization that's focused on growth. I think TV is a very good reinforcement of an already established brand. I think it's like validating for Salesforce, Amazon, all these guys to run gigantic TV campaigns, because it makes the people that are their customers feel better seeing it on TV. But like, to me, the TV market is so topsy-turvy, and like ratings are down, but prices are up. Like it's just not following any traditional like market economics. And like, I've seen time and time again at every company I've worked at that like the prioritization of cable and broadcast like does absolutely nothing to businesses and their growth. And you can find the ability to fill a funnel and make millions of people aware through YouTube and Facebook. So for me, I don't think it's really valuable.
Yeah, I would say, so what you said plays into the reason I'm trying to use it, is that we're in, for one of our programs, we're in smaller markets. I've nailed everybody with a Facebook ad, a YouTube ad. Now it's like a reminder.
That's exactly right.
On TV.
Saturate it everywhere else, and then like add it on top.
Yeah.
I think that's totally reasonable and plausible.
Or I had this thought. I was watching a Bud Light commercial and thinking, consumer products that I might go grab and literally eat or drink right now, that could actually be another bottle of beer that you just sold because you played a Bud Light ad, and I said, I'm gonna go grab a Bud Light. There's a play to that, but they're also an established brand. So
yeah, like the P&Gs and like all the like old school gigantic corporations like built their brands on the backbone of TV, but that's back when TV, you know, was seeing 50, 60, 70, 80 million people tuning in for the largest cable premieres and stuff every single weekday night. So like for me, like, I don't know about you, but I think that like the last like real remaining like juice worth squeezing out of TV is in the live sports. In terms of tune in, everything else, to your point, like buying spots and dots, just make sure it's cheap, like don't overpay. And then I think it's probably like valuable, but it usually doesn't pan out in my opinion.
Yep.
I love the healthy discussion
We also work in very
between
different businesses. Like,
the two of you. Yeah,
could not be more different.
you have wildly different businesses. If our moderator was a little bit more talented, he might have coordinated two specific business types. But on a serious note, I was excited because both of you, I think, are very smart humans. But yeah, you definitely have different businesses. So with that in mind, let's shift with our third question. And it's, I think, my favorite, but we should probably consider how to unpack it. The question is as follows: which of the two schools, colleges or universities, did the best job of preparing you for the roles that you are in? So your goal is to make an argument, and you could pick, by the way, for or against the fact that your specific school did a great job at preparing you. And as you do that, since we're trying to have some fun here, feel free to share kind of like lessons learned along the ways, because although we're trying to make this into kind of a showdown, smackdown sort of vibe, I do want people that are listening that are students to be able to take away some suggestions, regardless of which school they attend. So why don't we mix it up, since we've given Hope the privilege of going first twice now. It's only fair that we pivot, and we start with Calvin. Is your argument for or against Calvin having prepared you well? And what did they do to prepare you well for your current role?
At the risk of losing my voting base, I am going to say that they did not prepare me well. But I'm going to give some valid reasons that they didn't, and some ways that they did help, especially on the liberal arts side. So I graduated in 2012, started college in 2008. Digital has grown a lot since then in importance. Was maybe not the biggest marketing channels at that time, or in the years before when it, those programs would have been evolving school-wise. It wasn't as big of a deal. So I'd hope that by now they'd have some digital marketing courses, specifically even going into the channels. And actually I'm speaking at a Calvin lecture in December for a class that sounds like exactly what I wish I would have had. It's like digital marketing specific. So I think they've adapted, but that lack of actual digital marketing classes was definitely not great. Would have liked to have that. But the good thing about Calvin was the liberal arts part of our education. I took some philosophy classes, I think at the advice of my advisor, and those classes helped me learn how to think and how to evaluate ideas and make sure that I'm actually coming out with outcomes that are going to be impactful through logical thinking. So that, along with learning to learn, which in digital is kind of everything. Like, we have to learn constantly. Nothing is static. I don't just take a class on Facebook ads and then say I'm an expert forever. Next year, I have to learn everything again, basically. So
Amen.
Learning to learn, philosophical thinking, those were huge. Wish I would have had more digital marketing classes, but is what it is.
I love it. I love it. And I did not say amen. You might have thought that you heard it amen, but that wasn't me. Okay. So Andrew, I appreciate your valid presentation of your thoughts. Connor, how about you? Hope, did they prepare you? Did they not prepare you? Somewhere in between, and why?
So I agree with a lot of what Andrew said. I think Hope did prepare me well. But I also agree with a ton of the stuff you said, but I'll provide counters to why I don't think like a college's responsibility or like even ability to educate you on the world of digital marketing is like that feasible. So what I'll say about like the reasons for the liberal arts perspective, 100%, like you're just exposed to so many like schools of thought, you're exposed to so many types of classes, and like learning in each of those arenas is also different. And I think that no matter which kind of like career path you follow is insanely valuable. I also took most of my business classes with either Stacy Jackson or Peter Baumgarten. And those two guys are like some of the most impactful people like of my entire life. And what they taught us in our business classes, maybe it wasn't like here's how Facebook goes and impacts a business's marketing strategy, but it was here's how to understand businesses and the challenges that they face. And back to my initial point on the first question, like learning how to contextualize exactly what a business is trying to accomplish and what the headwinds are, and then actually accomplishing set objectives is so important. And that has helped me in an agency world where I worked on B2B, finance, telco, healthcare, as well as in, the D2C world, subscription world that I've worked in now. It just, those guys in their classes help to really understand how to understand businesses. And then in terms of like how a college could maybe do better, I think that like digital marketing classes, to your point, Andrew, actually like would just instantly outdate themselves. And so like something you'd learn would within the course of a year probably be seen as a little bit antiquated. So I think what's cool about digital marketing, like even in the course of my 5-6 year career in it, I've like learned and unlearned things 1,000 times. I've also come into businesses and jobs thinking that here's the exact way to drive performance. And what I find after doing some testing is that that's not actually working for this business. And so you have to like dive back into the platform, try a bunch of new things and see what sticks. So I think that like for a college to try to teach digital marketing, it's probably good to just like expose people to the world and how it works and how Facebook and Google ecosystems function and how they get eyes and tracking on everybody and how they use that to actually facilitate better ad delivery. But I don't know that I would want to sit in a class and like learn Facebook Ads Manager, to Andrew's point. I think that that's probably best learned on your own time. But all of the case studies and practical applications of how Facebook, Google, and other digital platforms can help businesses, like I'm sure that that's being better incorporated into curriculums now. Again, back to your point, Andrew, like when you were in school and certainly when I was in school, like these kind of digital campaigns and digital platforms were not in their like infancy per se, but it was like just starting their rapid rise versus nowadays they're unavoidable. So I am curious how the curriculum has kind of modernized itself over the course of the last few years. But in general, Hope, and I'm sure Calvin, like you go there and you're just taught how to be a curious person, which is invaluable.
Yes. Connor with a slam dunk home run statement. And I'm not saying that means that Connor won. I'm just saying that Andrew and Connor, what I love about you both, and I mean this sincerely, is that you're both curious, inherently curious people. And I feel like that's what a liberal arts education does, right? It helps create a curious person, a lifelong learner. So by the mere fact that you two have agreed to this crazy little idea, I know that you're both curious, lifelong learners. And if anyone's watching this when we publish it, I'm imagining that they are lifelong learners as well. So we are going to turn it to the audience in the comments. We'll figure out exactly how to pose the question. And we're going to try to figure out, was it Hope that won this or was it Calvin that won this?
It's no winners. This is a liberal arts thing.
I think there are everybody wins, right? Of course, but I think we'll find like a winner, and that person will perhaps receive some sort of significant prize. I'm imagining it will total the millions of dollars, kind of thing, or maybe just something from the bookstore with a logo on it. But Connor, Andrew, before we let you go, thank you for your time today. Thanks for agreeing to represent your alma maters and to talk a little bit of shop and to bring your digital and your marketing expertise to the table. Is there a shameless plug that either of you might want to share on your way out? Maybe it's just like find my blog, find my LinkedIn, find me doing this cool project. I think you get a shameless plug. Why don't we start with Andrew and then wrap up with Connor?
Sure. Yeah, my shameless plug would just be to connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out if you have any questions on digital and want a second set of eyes on anything. I'm open to helping and networking right now. I'm a little bored with being at home all the time and doing my own digital marketing 24/7. So yeah, getting some outside ideas going would be great for me.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, Andrew, because I think like that's the impetus for this exactly, is like, how do we get more inspiration? We've got these two wonderful schools with so much history and context. Yeah, so help Andrew not be bored. Connor, what about you?
So I think what's been really cool about like stumbling into digital marketing, because Andrew, we didn't even talk about this. I don't know if you like tried to fall into your field, but I certainly did not. So like, I think what's been really cool for me is learning that this world is actually like really small, and the network is just super supportive and super tight knit. So I guess what I'd say is like any current students or like recent grads, even Calvin kids, if you have any questions or are interested at all in like pursuing this field, I'm sure Andrew and I know that I do, you just make so many connections across so many cool businesses, and all of them are always hiring in the digital marketing space. It's not going anywhere. Every business under the sun needs this stuff. So if anybody is looking to get involved or just try to like talk to people across industries that they're interested in or companies that they think are cool, please feel free, connect on LinkedIn. I'm sure both Andrew and I would love to chat and help you out.
Yeah, and we'll include your LinkedIn URLs so you can find as many friends from both schools or universities as possible. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you listening to me shout and to sharing your stories, having a little bit of fun. I hope you have an excellent day, and thank you guys for tuning in to the Smackdown.
What a Smackdown it was.
Seeing ya.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
What a
guys.
Smackdown it was.
Great to meet you, Andrew. See ya.
Yeah, you
Thanks, guys. Bye.